I don't know either, Madam Secretary. We can't find it. We can't find a website. We did find an address that's registered for this company. Do you know where that address is?
Is there a problem with this contract?
I'll tell you about it.
According to
Madam
law,
Secretary, the
address
is registered to a political operative. Madam Secretary, the company, and then I'll give you an opportunity to respond. The company is registered to a political operative in Virginia. Do you know, just by way of example, whether this company that received $143 million in taxpayer dollars, has it ever done work for the government before?
I don't know. I can't.
The answer is it has not. And do you know why we know that? Because it was incorporated 8 days before this contract went out. You want the American people to believe that this is all above board?
Yes,
that $143 million of taxpayer money just happened to go to this one company that doesn't have a headquarters, doesn't have a website, has never done work for the federal government before, and is registered apparently or attached to a residence from a political operative. And of course, one of the subcontractors of that contract, as you know, is a political firm that's tied to you back when you were governor.
What you just watched is a United States Cabinet Secretary, the person in charge of the entire Department of Homeland Security, sitting before Congress, unable to answer basic questions about where $143 million of your money went. Her name is Kristi Noem. As of this hearing, she is the Secretary of Homeland Security. As of the day after this hearing, she is not. This is the March 4th, 2026 House Judiciary Committee hearing, and the man asking the questions is Representative Joe Neguse of Colorado, the same congressman whose questioning of Noem would be directly credited by multiple outlets as a factor in her firing less than 24 hours later. Here is what was already known before Neguse asked a single question. DHS awarded $220 million in advertising contracts without competitive bidding, invoking a border national emergency to skip the legal process designed to prevent exactly this kind of abuse. One of those contractors, Safe America Media, got $143 million. It was incorporated days before the contract. It had never done federal work, and it was registered to the home of a Republican political operative. The other contractor, People Who Think, is run by a former Trump campaign advisor who worked alongside Noem's top aide, Corey Lewandowski. Lewandowski, known inside DHS simply...
Correct?
I am familiar with it. It was an ad campaign that was...
I'm going to ask you some questions about it, Madam Secretary. So, as I understand it, this is a $220 million ad campaign. It's split between two contractors. One of those contractors got $143 million. That contractor is called Safe America Media, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That company is affiliated with a former political director of the National Republican Congressional Committee. Now, yesterday you testified, I think I'm quoting you right, you said, quote, or in reference to this contract, that, quote, it went out to a competitive bid. Do you stand by that statement?
It was a no-bid contract where two vendors were
It was a no-bid
chosen.
contract.
If it would have been a no-bid contract, if I'm using that correctly, it goes out to two different vendors.
Correct. So it was not a competitive. Let me try to explain what the discrepancy, because a competitive bid is very different than a no competitive bid, and I'll just explain why. We know that your testimony yesterday, when you said, again, I'll quote, it went out to a competitive bid, is untrue. The reason we know it's untrue is because under federal law, your agency is required, whenever the agency decides to skip competitive bidding, to file a notice with the public explaining why. And in this case, your agency filed a notice. You're aware of that, right? Justification and approval for other than full and open competition. Your agency made a decision not to proceed with competitive bidding, and one of the contractors that got the award was this Safe America Media company that received $143 million.
Many vendors got the chance to look at that contract and to participate in it.
As the chief is now the subject of a criminal investigation. This is not a footnote. This is the whole story. Let's be precise about what just happened. Noem went before the United States Senate and said the contract went out to competitive bid. That is a false statement. We know it is false because her own agency filed a legal notice, required by federal law, explaining why they were skipping competitive bidding. You can't file a document saying you're skipping competition and then testify you had competition. Those two things cannot both be true. When Neguse confronted her with it, she pivoted to the claim that many vendors had access, which is not what competitive bidding means. Competitive bidding means any qualified company in America can submit a proposal. What DHS did was identify 4 companies from the hundreds of thousands that exist, invite only those 4, and hand $143 million to one that had existed for less than 2 weeks. One more detail that didn't get enough attention. Senator Thom Tillis had already flagged on the record that Noem's agency was blocking the Inspector General from 11 separate investigations. The DHS Inspector General, a Trump appointee, had formally warned Congress in writing that his office was being systematically obstructed. He wasn't blocked from one investigation. He was blocked from
South Dakota. The reason why I ask these questions is that this is taxpayer money. And I presume, I don't know this for a fact, but Senator Tillis noted yesterday the way in which your agency is blocking the Inspector General from 11 different investigations that it is trying to conduct. I don't know if this happens to be one of them. I certainly hope it is, because eventually the facts will become public in this regard. And there are serious laws implicated, conflict of interest laws, federal procurement laws, that I believe
all
merit...
followed, all done correctly,
Was
all
it-
done legally.
all done correctly.
14 billion impressions from that
the-
marketing campaign.
sure.
There was money spent in this country and in 8 different countries that illegal migration was coming from.
Madam Secretary,
Overwhelmingly
yeah,
effective.
we all
$49
understand the
billion.
argument that you've made, that somehow this ad campaign on Fox News of you at Mount Rushmore has led to millions of people self-deporting. You're using
why do you think
millions
that
of
they did
dollars of
self-deport?
taxpayer
Had they not known?
money in this way. It is fraud, and ultimately, I think there's going to be accountability. And I yield back, Madam.
Can I speak to the IG?
11, including a criminal probe and a review of Secret Service failures at the Butler assassination attempt. Noem knew all of this when she sat down in that chair. Neguse called it fraud, not incompetence, not a mistake, fraud. He was not being hyperbolic. The federal procurement laws that govern how agencies spend taxpayer money exist for exactly one reason: to prevent officials from steering public funds toward their own political allies. DHS bypassed those laws. The companies that got paid had personal and professional ties to Noem, to Lewandowski, and to Noem's former spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin, whose own husband ran the strategy group, the subcontractor secretly embedded inside the deal. When the receipts finally came out through Senate investigation, here is what taxpayers paid for: a $60,000 signing bonus, $20,000 in horse rentals, and a $500 charge to a magic store in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for a federal border security campaign that spent $220 million. Then Noem sat before Congress and claimed the IG has access to anything. That statement was already publicly contradicted. The IG's own March 2nd letter to Congress, 2 days before this hearing, listed the exact databases his investigators had been locked out of: BorderStat, Secure Flight, the Unified Immigration Portal, a classified counterintelligence database, and the intelligence program tied to the Butler assassination attempt.
Yes, you can. Quick.
The IG has been told repeatedly, in writing, verbally, on the phone, that he can have access to anything at the Department of Homeland Security. He can. He doesn't need my permission to come and brief members of Congress on the Hill. He just needs to provide a scoping memo, which is what every single IG gets from every single department and agency. All intelligence agencies require a scoping memo. He just hasn't done that. He wants unfettered access to every single thing in the
review. Not 1, 7. And here is the part that should stay with you. Even Republican Senator John Kennedy said publicly he couldn't believe Trump approved this. Trump himself told Reuters he never knew anything about it. That means Noem either spent $220 million without presidential approval, or she lied to Congress about having it. There is no third option. Let's put the full picture together. A cabinet secretary overseeing one of the largest agencies in the federal government awarded $220 million in advertising contracts without competitive bidding to companies that were brand new, had no track record, and had direct personal ties to her and her top aides. She personally approved every DHS payment over $100,000. She then blocked her own Inspector General from 11 separate investigations, including a criminal probe. She testified to the Senate that the process was competitive. It was not. She testified Trump approved the ads. He says he never knew. And then, the day after this hearing, she was fired. The DHS Inspector General is now conducting what former DHS General Counsel John Sandweg described as a sweeping investigation looking for any improprieties, including potential crimes. FEMA offices have been physically searched. Devices have been seized. Corey Lewandowski, Noem's shadow chief of staff, is under active scrutiny. This is not a partisan story. The IG who blew the whistle is a Trump appointee. The senator who called out the $220 million ad spend most forcefully is a Louisiana Republican. The president himself disavowed the entire campaign. What you watched in this clip is not just one bad hearing. It is what happens when accountability collapses at every level. When no one inside an agency will say no. When watchdogs get blocked. When contracting rules get waived with a national emergency declaration. And when the public's money flows to whoever has the right political connections. Representative Neguse asked the right questions at the right time. But questions are not accountability. Investigations are. That probe is ongoing. If you want to know where it leads, stay with us. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what happened in that hearing room, like it, share it, and subscribe. The story isn't over.